Welcome to the Scaling SaaS podcast, sponsored by Zeno Digital Consulting Group, where we talk with founders and operators about building durable, scalable businesses. Today, I'm joined by Casey Drake from ENDEAR, a platform helping retail brands empower store associates to build real customer relationships that actually drive revenue. Casey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, first of all, the sort of the chaos behind you is awesome, by the way. It's there's like lots going on. So if you see me like looking around, I'm trying to see like, all right, what's that old TV in the background? And so it looks great.
Yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves with especially everybody I feel like is virtual now and all these meet is when people have like either a blurred background or some kind of like artificial background where I'm like, you're losing such an opportunity to show off your personality a little bit and like that you're a real human on the other end of this screen when you do that. I'm like, what are you so afraid of people seeing in your background? Like my bookshelf is certainly messy and chaotic, and I know that, but that's also kind of the person I am. So I might as well let people know that about me.
No, I'm the same way. I don't like the virtual backgrounds at all. Even just the way that it kind of messes with your head and all that. I just don't like the way it looks. So
Yeah.
I've never really done that. And I joke, I can't tell. Let me see. I'm not looking at myself, but usually people can see these pictures of my kids. So I joke. It's like it's my sneaky way of forcing people to look at pictures of my kids in today's digital age. In the old days, you'd pull out your wallet, and you'd do that. And so this is my Zoom, way of making forcing people to look at pictures of my kids.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's kind of dive in. So what? Let's get like a little bit of an origin story here from Endear. Like, what what was the problem in retail that led you guys to build something brand new to support a retail environment? Where'd you see that?
Yeah, I think that the main problem is really that like stores have sales teams in them, right? Like they're every single retail store you walk into, those people in that store, they are salespeople. Like that is the sales team side of most retail brands. They might also have like, their corporate salespeople or their wholesale salespeople, but the end consumer, that's their salesperson. Those people have been given like traditionally little to no technology to help them do their job. They really are like, they have their point of sale system that they ring you up on. Outside of that, a lot of them have like little black books, like literal physical notebooks. And this is not like it used to be like this. Isn't that crazy? I still talk to brands every day that this is how they still do things is with real physical pen and paper notebooks where people are tracking things about customers and interactions that they have with people. The best brands sometimes do it in like a group Google Sheet. That's like the best, most sophisticated version of it. But largely, that side of the business has been really ignored from a technology perspective. I think like probably around like mid 2000s, maybe even closer to like the 2010 time period, e-commerce really took off, right? E-commerce hit its big boom. Shopify came around and anybody could go start a brand, spin it up, have a website ready for it, and start selling products with like little to no upfront revenue or anything. And what came with that e-commerce boom was so much technology poured into how do we help that e-commerce company. And there is an unlimited number of options out there for somebody that sits on the e-com team at a brand. But what quickly happened is like stores got ignored in that process and people stopped building for the store and were building for the e-commerce site. And so I think we really just saw like a huge gap in the market in the fact that these retail stores where I don't even know what the number is now, but every year when we go look this up and sort of update our own internal statistics, it's like 80 to 85% of retail business and transactions is happening in the store. And so why are we still like everybody sort of like saw e-commerce take off and I think had this idea that e-commerce was eventually going to become maybe 50% of retail sales. It's just not happening that way. People still love shopping in person. They love going into stores and shopping. And that is where the sales are happening. And so there's this massive gap in the market of like all of this interaction and revenue and things happening in the store that weren't being supported by really any piece of technology outside of a point of sale system.
Yeah, so tell me what that is. Like, how do you empower, store associates? Like, what are you doing differently than just the standard, POS?
Yeah, I think to put really simply for especially people that are probably listening to this show, we are like HubSpot, but for your store. So like we are that CRM, that place where you can take your notes, you track all of the emails that you're sending, any text. A lot of texting is going on in retail versus like B2B. There's not so much texting happening, but a lot of texting is happening. So we are that central location where every single transaction that happens with really, I like to say, anytime that the customer is engaging with our brand, just like you would in your CRM if you're using HubSpot or Salesforce, that should be in that system. So that way you have that record of it. And that's really what we are for the brand. And I think the biggest thing the brands get out of it is, like I said, this information exists. It's just usually not usable anywhere because it's in a notebook, it's in a Google Sheet, it's not in this one centralized system. And something really important that we decided from the beginning is we aren't your point of sale system. There are point of sale systems try to do what we do at times in a way. They try to be both your point of sale and your CRM system, but there's so much that goes into processing a sale for you with like working with the credit card companies, making sure that you are handling that really sensitive data in the ways that you're supposed to handle it, that they sort of push this whole CRM object to the side as like, it's just this other thing we do as well and offer to you as well. But it's never been really done well by a POS system. And so we entered the market being like, we're not going to be your point of sale. We're going to partner with your point of sale. And so we have a lot of partnerships with like almost probably any point of sale system that's out there at this point in time, where we sit on top of your point of sale, integrate with it, ingest all of that data into our system and make it usable for that retail store team.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is obviously you have to have some sort of integration because you can't keep those things separate. That's duplication, and there's just no way anybody would go for that. So I would imagine you'd have to have launched with either a pretty robust API or some solid integrations with some of the main players in that space.
Yeah, exactly. Our founding, we really started as like a Shopify partner, right? So we saw like the Shopify app marketplace taking off, and we put a lot of eggs in that basket in the beginning. And what was really cool for me, so I was brought on as our first ever account executive. So it was like the two co-founders, we had one developer who was hired a couple of months before me, and then I was the next employee after that. And like really at first it was a limitation, but then I quickly realized like what was nice about this Shopify integration being so necessary for me to make the sale happen is it really worked to sort of force limit my ICP. I was like, okay, I can only close you, I can only win this deal if you are on Shopify. And so
Right.
now I know, and Shopify is a really easy data point, to go scrape from any system anywhere is giving you, what e-commerce site does a brand use. I can go scrape that data, and now I have a list of everybody who's actually a good fit for me right now. And like eventually we graduated out of that and we sort of needed to get more than what the Shopify marketplace had for us. And we started building more integrations. But that whole first, like probably year or so was very distinctly like we are built for Shopify brands and that's who we're going to go after.
I mean, my son, who's about to turn 18, he's just spun up a Shopify. He's trying to figure out. He wants to sell D&D merch. So he's a huge D&D guy, and he plays every week uh, virtually. So he's
Yep.
got like a virtual dungeon master, and they get a bunch of guys on the phone and on Zoom, and they do D&D virtually every year. So he wants to see if he might be able to sell some, shirts and things like that he comes up with, and some designs that he creates and stuff. And it is nowadays it is so simple, right? To just spin it up, put it up there, and it's the barrier to entry is really crazy.
Yeah, it's so easy. One of my first I have this like entrepreneurial spirit, you could call it. Like I think people will ask me like, what's your next move after Endear? Like, maybe more classically, like, where do you want to see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And my answer is always like, I want to own my own company. At the end of the day, like that is my goal. I think where I'm at with Endear right now, I'm as close as you can possibly be to that without being the owner of the company. But I still like have that dream and that goal. And I had that, all through college. And in college, me and my friend actually started a company. We called it College Collections. And basically what it was is we realized that there was all of the like we would take art classes as like our elective. We were both business majors. I was an econ major. He is a business guy. But we would take art classes just because we liked art. We liked doing it. It's an easier elective to take to sort of fulfill that credit that you have to take. And everybody else that was in those classes with us was just like us. They were like, they liked art, but they were trying to be a nurse. They were trying to be something else. They didn't want to be an artist professionally. You don't go to a school like mine if you want to be an artist professionally. So what would happen at the end of the semester is there were some really talented artists in these classes. All of this artwork would just get thrown away because there's nothing to do with it. And a lot of time the kids are like, I don't really want to take it home. And so me and my friend were like, what if we sell it for you? And so we started collecting all of this artwork from students at the end of the semesters and just snapping pictures of it. We built a Shopify website on our own, and it was like the easiest thing in the world. Neither of us are like coders or developers, and just started offering this artwork for sale for like really cheap, but it was really great artwork for really cheap. And then we would give like the chunk back to the kid who made the art if we sold their piece.
That's awesome. Was it successful for a little while, or did you wind it down, or like did you actually, get some business?
It is it's really hard to actually make the building the Shopify site's the easiest part. That's what I'll say. Like you have to really
Uh-huh.
like pour some marketing dollars and have some investment. And I think when both of us graduated college, we kind of were like, yeah, this isn't really a dream or passion of ours. And so we kind of just like wound it down at that point in time.
Yeah, it's a cool idea, but not something that you're super passionate about. But it is a really cool idea, and you wonder if you did have, a war chest of some marketing dollars, just how you, when you could, if you think about the, and this is kind of a tangent, but I'm fascinated by that idea. If you think of the number of schools, in the country, and you could somehow, reach out to them, and like your portfolio of artwork could be massive.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty cool thing to, if you had some investment dollars to put into it, that would be a pretty cool thing to try to scale.
Yeah, maybe in the future I'll come back to that idea. Unless one of your listeners steals it from me first, and I would be happy if they did, honestly, because I just like the idea that much that it would be cool to be able to go to some place and buy some art off a college kid that's just making art for fun.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that idea. Um, so remind me, I can't remember, I think you told me this in our first conversation, how old Endear is, how many years?
Yeah, we are. So the company was started like by the paperwork about 9 years old, but
Okay.
I would say like really about 7 years ago when they brought me in is what we really think of as like our founding date or founding moment. The two
Okay.
co-founders met each other through a program called VFA, Venture for America. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's sort of like this program you can, if you're an entrepreneurial kind of person, certain colleges offer it. And it basically is like a way to get into entrepreneurship. So they met each other through this program and were like, really like, we want to start a company together. And I think that whole first 2 years, they would agree with me in saying this. They were just kind of searching for what that idea should be and what they want it to be. Where they actually started was originally personal stylist. So like it wasn't like going to brands and trying to sell this tech to the brand directly. It was actually going to personal stylists who have really wealthy clients that like just ask them to go shop for them and giving them a tool to communicate with their clients But we just found there's way more success in just doing this at the brand itself. And that's really when we shifted and they brought me in and things took off from there. So I'd say 7 years is the easiest number.
So, I mean, you wouldn't still consider yourself early stage. Are you kind of in the growth stage now?
Yeah, we just brought on our Series A a little over a year ago. So definitely in that, yeah, hyper growth stage. I think we've doubled the size of our company over the past year in terms of headcount. I hate when people use headcount as a reference for how well their company's doing for what it's worth, but
Yeah.
people do it. And so like, yeah, we've probably about doubled the size of our company. And yeah, it's like it's just incredible where we were when I started there to think about it. And I don't get chances to do that often. So I appreciate you bringing this up. But we were just such a small like idea and hope and dream almost that is now a fully fledged company with HR and benefits and all of these things that go into running a company. It's just crazy to think about that can really happen. And it feels like it was just yesterday, even though it was 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's funny because I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always admired entrepreneurs. I say that it's like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I never took any steps to be an entrepreneur. So I spent my entire career in corporate America, and until just recently, about 2.5, 3 years ago, is when I like just decided to go and do it. And that's my goal. And like I'm nowhere near that right now, but like there is something to be said about building a company in a way that, like in my mind, what you just described is kind of what I'm trying to accomplish is like that's a proper company. Like you got an HR department, you got, like it's a running proper, it's not just me and a few other people scrapping around, trying to make it work, but it's like a properly run business. And so I'm not there yet, but that's definitely my goal. So that's cool that you
Yeah.
guys, you got there.
I think for what it's worth, I think I'm in the exact same bucket as you, maybe a couple years earlier, but we won't
Yeah,
comment on age. But I'm in the exact same bucket where I really want to be an entrepreneur, or I should put it better. I want to be my own boss. That's what I
yes,
want. I don't have this passion to come up with the next like great thing or idea. I don't have that in me, and
sure.
I just want to be my own boss, for lack of a better way to put it. And that's where I want to end up, right?
Yeah. No, I think that better probably describes me too, because like I'm the same way. I'm not. I have a lot of really cool ideas and all that, but that's not what's driving me. What's driving me is the be your own boss, the independence, the creation of something, build the building aspect of making a business, taking it from nothing to something like that. That's what I'm striving for. That's what drives me.
Yeah, I think it's easier than ever now, is the bright side. Like if you really want to be your own boss and you really want to bet on yourself, there is no better time to be alive and in the workforce than right now.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, with all the AI tools and everything, I mean, you can do the work of 10 people with, one chat bot,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, all the market research people and all the like, we don't need that. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's doing it for me.
And then you throw social media on top of that. There's like
Yep.
there's free ways for you to build your reputation and get your name out there because social media exists now and it didn't 20
Yeah.
years ago. So
No, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. It was all just phone, right? Phone
yeah,
calls.
it was marketing dollars is what it was. You really had to have the money to spend 20 years ago.
No, for sure. For sure. So when a brand, a retail brand starts using Endear, what do you typically see as like the measure of success? So they've got their current situation and they implement Endear. What KPIs do you kind of see that moves the needle for that company? Is it
Yeah,
just
so
simply
there's
sales, or are there
yeah,
others?
Yeah, there's two things really I would point to. One, the most obvious one is sales. So because we have that integration with the POS and we're pulling that order data back in, we can look at the emails and text messages and any sort of engagement with that customer prior to the sale happening and attribute it back to that sale. And I think that is like the most obvious driver and the one we end up leaning on quite a bit, honestly, because it makes the most sense to people. But what I actually like really believe is the biggest KPI that I try to harp and like focus on with people when I can is adoption. So there's it's an interesting thing about retail that isn't really true about most, I would argue, businesses or any other industry, which is most of the people that our app is getting put into the hands of, it's this like what they're doing is not their career. It's not their dream. They aren't
Yeah.
trying to work at a retail store forever. It's a holdover. They are either maybe they're in college and they're doing this to make money while they're in college. Maybe they are, especially a lot of these stores in New York, they're trying to make it on Broadway. They're trying to be an actor. They're trying to be an influencer. They have to make some income in the meantime. They work at a retail store. So what it's like very, very hard for a lot of these brands when the brands also aren't dumb. They know this is true about the people that they're getting into those roles. It's really tough to get those people to buy into something and to like want to be there and to do what we're asking people to do with our app is extra work. There's no sugarcoating it. If you didn't have our app, you would just get to sit back, wait for people to walk through the door, swipe their card when they walk in, help them if they have any questions. When your brand puts our app in place, now they're asking you to do a little bit more than just that as your job. And so if we can, like we put so much emphasis on that, the really early days when a customer first just signed up, where like we know if we can drive that adoption in the early days, that brand will be successful because that's the hardest barrier to get over. The sales are almost a given. Like if you think about it today, you don't text or email any customer other than through your marketing channel. If you start texting and emailing a customer, do you think you'll drive more sales than when you didn't text or email them? That's an obvious yes. The tricky part is how do I get my team in that store to send their own text and emails to a customer and actually have that personal interaction happen? Especially because a lot of them aren't getting paid commission at all. They just get paid hourly rates. Commission is a bit of a rare thing in retail brands. They might get bonuses for hitting certain sales goals as a store, but they're not getting like individualized commissions.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because when you're in college or high school, you kind of there's two people, right? There's the I'm going to go in the food service, so I'm going to go be a waiter,
Yep.
or I'm going to go to retail. And I wanted nothing to do with being a waiter. That to me was like a nightmare. So I went the retail route. So in high school, my first job in high school, well, not my first, but my main job in high school was this little men's clothing store across the street from our school called the Campus Shop. So I worked there as I was a stock person and then a salesperson. And then when I was in college, uh, the job that I had in college was at the Gap. So I was, the folding shirts and the Gap.
Uh-huh.
And I say this is funny that you say it because I was probably like the worst employee. Like I hated it. I didn't want to be there. I was not buying in to,
Yeah.
the method and the thing. Like I'm like, what do you want from me? Like you're paying me hourly. I'm folding shirts. Like enough, right? And
Yep.
a buddy of mine, who's still one of my best friends today, worked there as well. And he always used to just shake his head at me. He's like, "Dude, you're gonna get fired." Like, really awful. But that's a lot of the climate. Is you basically got some college students working, and so that it was kind of leading me to another question. Is I would imagine your your best customers are more boutique type retail, right?
Yep.
Where you want that personal touch. Because I can't. I mean, I everything's so online now. Honestly, I honestly don't really go into a lot of retail shops anymore. I mean, I just buy most of the stuff online, but I would imagine in today in a lot of these more higher end and boutique shops, you want that personal touch
Yep.
and get someone's phone number, texting them, hey, we got this, the sale going on coming up on Wednesday, or oh, we just got the new line in or whatever, and you're literally getting a personal text from the person that helped you at some time in the past. I would imagine makes a big difference.
Yeah, totally. And you're exactly right. It's like these boutique shops are also like uh it's usually like the easiest way to put it is higher price point. The way I like to say it that I think sounds a little nicer is it's an involved purchase decision. So like typically I'm not going to walk off the street and go buy something from that store because the average item price of item in that store is like $200. So I'm going to think about it. I'm going to probably do a little research online, maybe even before I end up coming to your store to then try it on and see it in person, and everything that's involved with like why I would be in that store in the first place. So you're exactly right there. And I think the other like massive thing that we're doing for these brands is just like increasing how much information they have about any given customer. Because there's like, when you go shop on an e-commerce site, I know everything that you do. Just like when you go surf any site, I can know everything you do with how I cookie you and what have you. When you go into the store, that entire interaction, unless you're using something like Endear, it's just like poof. It just goes into the air and then it's never used anywhere in any other system. And so that's like another reason you need that system in place is you need to, there's so much data just being lost from that interaction in the store.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with the VP of sales at Bridge, Brij, and so
Yeah, I
they
know
help.
her. I know the founder really well.
Yeah,
Kate.
so I can't remember her name. Uh, Really great lady. I had a great conversation with her for the podcast, and I was fascinated by that. That's this concept of kind of connecting that offline and online data because everybody's using the ecom data, but you don't really know anything about your in-person people. And I would imagine that I don't think you guys would be competitors, but it feels like you guys complement each other.
So yeah, so Bridge is really big in like the CPG space. So
Yeah,
like imagine, my goal as a retail company is not actually to open my own stores, but to get my product put in Walmart, to get my product put in Target. And
yeah,
then what Bridge is like a QR, they would probably be mad at me if I said this because they're probably much more than a QR code company, but they help you basically put that QR code on your product somewhere. So that way, when I go buy it at the store, I can tell you who I am, where I bought it, why I bought it, all of those things. And like there's typically some incentive attached to that. Like the classic one is like when you buy any sort of technology product today, they're like, hey, make sure you go register this product so that way we like your warranty's active, or they give you some incentive. Really, they just want to know your data. They're like, we want to know more about you because we have no idea who you are because you bought our
sure.
product at Best Buy.
No, it was Whitney Hudson.
Yep.
She the VP of sales. And no, that's the exact example that she gave, right? I think we talked about Lowe's and the
Hmm.
QR code. And I joked around because I'm like a total warranty registration guy. Like if I get
I
any product,
same.
I'm either scanning that QR code or filling it out and sending it in the mail. It's saved me so many times to actually register it. I told her a story. When we first bought this house, the AC got put in, and then like I don't know, it was 9 years later, the AC goes out, and the guy comes in and he's like, well, it's since it's not under warranty. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, it typically has a 5-year warranty, but if you registered it, it's usually 10 years, but nobody ever does that. And I'm like, uh-uh. No.
Yeah.
I pulled up Evernote because I've been using Evernote for like 20 years or whatever. And I like did a search. I was like, is this the warranty that you mean? He's like, oh my God, nobody ever does that. And so it got completely covered. Right. And so it's like, I'm a complete warranty registration guy.
Yeah. You know what it reminds me or makes me think of, because this happened to me not long ago, is for some reason, I don't know why, I think there's something in like either when you're a boy and like you're coming, like I feel like at some point somebody has like taught me or told me to keep every cardboard box for every piece of technology that I buy. And so I have
Yeah.
a literal closet full of empty cardboard boxes from things I bought like 3 years ago. I very recently sold something that I barely used and was sitting around. I was like, I should probably just resell this. So I sold it on Facebook Marketplace. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I have the box for it still. So I got to put it back into its original box. And I was like, this is why I keep the box.
It's so funny that you say that. So I don't do this anymore. I've removed myself from that habit, because I realized like I was saving things so long that it was almost not even worth selling it anymore. So like, but the funny thing is I didn't keep them in a closet. I had huge tubs, and I labeled the tubs the box of boxes. And so I had those in like my storage area. So I had these like 3 or 4 big tubs full of box of boxes, iPhone boxes, router boxes, like all those things. And my wife was just like, really? Like, you're never going to use those things. And so I finally, like the keyboard box that my Apple
Yeah.
keyboard came in, like just dumb, like stop doing that. So
Yep.
it's funny. And I think it is. I mean, there's something. Maybe it is a guy thing because we got your cord boxes, we got your box of boxes. I've got my HDMI. I've got 100 HDMI cables in a little plastic box, like for no reason at all. My sons think
Yeah.
I'm crazy.
You know what I think it is? I think consumerism has taken off so much in the last like 10 to 15 years. And you can like really like any version of, I would argue, almost anything you want to buy, you can find like a pretty cheap version for it somewhere online. And so I think like back when, at least like when I was growing up, that wasn't true. And so we
That's
saved
true.
everything because it was like, what if I need a cardboard box? And now I'm like,
Yeah,
I could buy one for $1 if I need a
yeah.
cardboard box.
No, that's true. That's a good point. I think it was the time has changed in the sense that it's just not as necessary to save things anymore because things are so cheap now with that kind of stuff.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
Well, I still have a bunch of thoughts, and I know I usually say I try to keep this at about 30 minutes, but are you okay going a little longer? Because
Yeah, totally.
right. So tell me about how we mentioned AI, and the force multiplier that is. Um, How have you guys implemented it? Like I think I mentioned this on our first call. I like to always talk about how you guys are implementing AI in your product, if you are, and then how you guys are doing it from a company perspective, operationally, that sort of thing. So let's start with Endear as a product in the CRM. How are you guys implementing AI?
Yeah, totally. So I think it kind of comes back to there's two big ones that I'll touch on here. One comes back to sort of what I was talking about before, where this end user of our product doesn't necessarily want to be doing that job. They're not like really excited about getting in there and sending their emails and text messages. And so we've recently, it's still in beta. So it's like if you went and signed up for Endear tomorrow, you wouldn't see this feature live in the app. But with some select customers, we're running it with this already. We call it like our AI opportunity engine. And the whole concept is look at my customers. Like you have all this data about my customers. The like really popular ones are like thank yous or abandoned carts. So you have all this data about my customers. Instead of making my retail associate either remember a customer or go search for a customer, just pull them right to their in front of their face and say, like Brad shopped 2 days ago at your store and bought this thing. Here's a good draft of a message that you should probably send to Brad. And so that's like our AI opportunity engine. And then from there, we at least everything in our platform right now, we try to keep like human in the loop. So like there's always going to be right now that human is the final sort of stage of like look over that message, maybe edit anything about it, and then press send. And then it's sort of like a set of tasks, right? That task is done, and now your next opportunity comes to the surface. And that opportunity might be Casey was shopping online, added these two things to his cart, never checked out. He lives actually 2 miles away from your store. You should reach out to see if maybe he wants to try it on, and that's why he didn't buy it. So
Right.
that's like the biggest example of bringing it into the product, because what we try to do with the product at all times is like reduce the number of actions that require the associate input. And if we can do that in every place, then adoption goes up, use of the app goes up. And so that's really, really like I think the biggest ways to use AI in the platform is for that. The other big one that I'm really excited about that I actually hope like HubSpot or other CRMs pick up on this and start doing it as well, there, and I'm pretty passionate about this, so I'm about to stand on my soapbox here for a minute. The notes function in any CRM is perhaps like at somehow at the same time both the most powerful and the most useless feature in every single CRM. It's powerful because it lets you just really get all of the context out that you want to get out without needing to force it into a field or think about how it works in sort of like maybe this drop down, none of them apply. Which one do I pick now? Everything that's in that note has all this context and all this like really, really rich information. Now, the problem with that being that powerful is you can't use it anywhere. Like the problem with all that.
It's unstructured data.
Exactly. And so what we need to do is it's only useful today if I click into that actual company and then I'm on that company record and then I read that note. But
Yep.
in our B2B world, that might happen a little bit more often. Think about the retail world where these retail brands have millions and millions of customer records, so many more than any B2B company has in their CRM, because that's just the nature of they're dealing with consumers at the end of the day. And nobody is going through and actually clicking and reading these notes. So we have this engine we're working on now. This one is also still like in beta, where it basically pulls context out of these notes and turns them into structured data. So puts them into your properties, and then all of that info can push back to your marketing platform. So you can actually start to get maybe size or fit or any different like characteristics about that person into a structured data field. So that way everybody else in your company, it becomes way more useful for.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. You keep reminding me of the conversation that I had with Whitney, because she was telling me, because back in my VMware days, I mean, we helped build our CRM system. We were using Salesforce, and we'd always, you'd have marketing, you'd have finance, you'd have ops guys. And they're like, oh, no, we need this form, and we want 100 fields, like, because we need all that data. And I'm like, guys, the salespeople are not going to do that. Like, they're not going to
Yeah.
fill that out. That's ridiculous. We'll make it required. Now you're just going to piss people off, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
Now you're going to get garbage data. You're going to get a bunch of NA.
or whatever. It's funny that you say that, because it was always we would do analysis on the data, and for like 100% of the time, the most frequently put in the drop down was the first, whatever was the first item. Like it was like, I'm just putting whatever. I just don't care. I'm moving forward. If it's required, I'm just gonna. So like you'd see this crazy skew of data. So that's just a constant issue, right? Getting data into your CRM. That's the number one problem. And
Yeah.
so I can't remember the product that they use, but because they're B2B, they're having a lot of phone calls. And so now they're transcribing all those phone calls. And now they have a tool that basically takes that transcription and puts all that data into the CRM, into the right spots. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, oh my God, like when I was selling, and like that would have been incredible. Like have a conversation, and then all of a sudden your CRM is filled with all the things that you talked about. And so, have you guys thought about something like that? I mean, that would be kind of weird, I guess, in a personal thing. It's like, hey, can I record our interaction? And while you're talking to a potential customer, that would maybe be a little
It's
creepy.
Yeah.
But
It's very funny you say that, because that was literally just a topic of conversation on our leadership call that we had earlier today. We started getting a little futuristic and sort of like where the product could go, and we were talking about this specific, like pulling insights out of notes. What we've done so far today is make it as easy as possible for you to take a note, right? So we do that by you can just type in a note if you want to on the mobile. I'm going like this because most people are using our mobile app in a retail store setting. You can just type a note in if that's how you like to do things. If you've already jotted that note down on a piece of paper, you could just take a picture of that piece of paper, and then our AI will transcribe it into a note for you. And then we've also enabled you to just talk into your phone. So if after that customer leaves the store, I could just pull up Brad's profile, click record note and just start talking out into my phone. And then that will transcribe all of that. So that's like as close as we've gotten to that experience right now. But we were sort of talking about how, because similar to Whitney, like we have an internal tool that does that as well for us. It doesn't work as great as I wish it would. I'll be honest about that. But I was like, imagine a world where every associate in the store is just wearing like Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And there's like either maybe there's a prompt they're asking you like, hey, by the way, if it's all right, I can really improve your experience with us as a brand if you just let me like turn on my glasses and then like record our interaction while you're in the store today. And then all that will get logged in our system. So you're not going to get crappy marketing emails from us that are trying to sell you something you don't want. You'll only get the best sort of like information because we know all this about you. Then we can sort of have that experience that you're talking about where all that can be transcribed. And that's like future world. I think there are companies out there that are trying to solve that problem. And there's just a lot of, as you would imagine, like privacy issues with recording somebody in that setting where they might not expect to be recorded, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some privacy challenges. I mean, obviously you would have to have them consent, but then like if someone's walking by or, like having it contained to just you and the person that you're talking to might not work. It's funny,
Yep.
one of the first episodes I recorded was with the CEO of Playback Health. And so it's essentially doing exactly what we're just talking about. So in a doctor's office, they essentially record everything and then it gets transcribed and all the insurance forms gets pulled out, patient notes get automatically transcribed, sent to the patient. Like I kind of foresee like that type of features. Those types of features are definitely coming out more because the transcription has gotten really, really good, right? In the old days, it kind of sucked, but nowadays it's really, really good. And so now you do have that unstructured data. And now with LLMs can actually interpret what that data is. And now it can know what a size is. Like, in the old days, it would say medium or large, wouldn't really know what it is, but now it can interpret it and
Yeah.
put that data in the right fields. And so I foresee that type of thing, coming pretty fast and furious, I would imagine.
Yeah. I also think like the point I brought up earlier today is like in like you get used to something at work and then like it starts to enter your consumer world. AI is maybe like the only example where this wasn't true, where I feel like AI somehow hit work and personal at the exact same time. It like blew up at the same time. But like everybody now in their work world is just so used to like assuming like every Zoom you hit, this call is being recorded. Everything is always saying that. Where like I think
Yeah.
people are used to that. And as they get more comfortable with that, they will get more comfortable with saying yes to that question when they walk into the door of like, yeah, sure, you can record our meeting today. Like, I guess this is kind of like a work meeting for you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, you guys should definitely go down that path because I would imagine that would be filling a gap of data, getting data, because again, they still have to take the notes or they still have to, after the fact, then they have to now record something. And so there's still some friction there. But to remove that friction with actually recording the actual interaction would, smooth things out immensely, I would imagine.
Yeah. Where we are focusing right now is really being the best at taking this unstructured data and turning it into your structured data and kind of hoping. I mean, maybe years down the line we'll get into that kind of thing, but hoping somebody else solves that problem, and then we'll integrate with that partner and we'll pull that data in. But then we don't have to worry about all those privacy issues and building the hardware to do the recording in the first place. Like we're not a hardware company by any means, and we have no interest in really being a hardware company.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. Now, what about internally? I mean, you mentioned that you have a tool similar to what Whitney was describing. Like, how are you guys using AI? Are you using it for research or SDR enablement? How LinkedIn
Yeah.
outreach? What are you guys using?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the most effective way I've been able to use AI is like we don't have any SDRs or BDRs on our team. And that originally started as I just felt like I just hated the SDR BDR motion in general. It had nothing to do with like I can replace this motion with something better, because like we've never had SDRs or BDRs here for the last 7 years. And I just always had this idea in my mind of I want to have full cycle AEs. I want that. I want a customer. I think it's a really bad experience as a customer to have somebody either cold call you, email you, win you over basically enough to get a meeting. And like you usually have to like that person a little bit to then just be like, oh yeah, by the way, here's Brad. He's actually going to take over from here. I wanted to avoid that as often as possible in our sales cycle. So there's as little of handoff as possible. So in the early days, it was really just expecting more of my AEs. What it has become now, though, is every AE on my team basically has AI SDRs working for them all the time in the background. So the hard part, I actually just posted about this on LinkedIn yesterday. The hard part of the process now is not the monotonous getting the communications out there. It is actually what, and more importantly, I would say, when do I reach out to you? And what that takes is like, I call it signal searching. So like, I need to have certain signals that I'm looking for. And this isn't a new phenomenon. I just think AI has made like looking for these signals so much more efficient and like effective, because you can get so granular. So like my example that I love to use is, we realized very early on that if you are a brand who's actively expanding, so you're opening more retail stores in more cities, it is a great time for us to reach out to you, because you're probably thinking about these exact problems that we solve. And like at 1 to 2 stores, the problems weren't that big of a deal. As you get to store 3, 4, 5, it's like, all right, I don't know how much I can trust these people. I would like to have some look into what they're saying and all of that comes with what we do. And so like prior to AI agents existing, that piece of data, opening a new retail store, doesn't exist anywhere. There's no Zoom info doesn't have this person is opening a new retail store the same way they have like went through a funding round and things like that. So the only way for my reps to do that was like literally we would go on Google and you would just keep switching out the brand name, but it would be like so-and-so open, like new retail store opening. So like, I'm trying to think of brand, The Gap, new retail store opening, Alo Yoga, new retail store opening. And you would just search to see if that was true. Now we basically just have an AI agent doing that in the background on all of our target brand list. So that way they're pretty much looking through Google News, because what's interesting about our retail brands is they don't post on LinkedIn as much as most other industries do. But when they're opening a new store in your neighborhood or your city, they're always going to put something out there in like a local blog or a little local gazette in that area, because they want people to come in and visit this new store that they're opening in the area. So it looks through Google News, finds an article, sends that signal back into my HubSpot instance, and then automatically triggers a sequence to go out from the AE that's assigned to that company saying like, hey, Brad, saw you're opening up a new store down in Soho. Like typically like these are like, congrats. Typically these are, you get the idea from there. But that is like the biggest, I think, most powerful use that we've found so far. The other do you have any, I was like, should I pause there and let you maybe ask any questions on that? Because there's one other like the powerful use case.
Yeah, no, keep going. Well, so I did have one question. So are you building that internally, or do you have like an agency that you use, or how did you get to that point?
Yeah, so I went to a conference that was, I like to say in sales, it's very rare when you're the salesperson that you get to go to a conference where you're the belle of the ball. Usually you're the one standing at the booth trying to hawk people down and talk to them. But I went to a conference in the rare scenario where like I was the end customer of that conference, and did like a classic little round table talk thing at the conference. And one of the guys afterwards, Andre, shout out Andre, he came up to me and I sort of like in that round table was on my soapbox about SDRs and BDRs and like how I hate that motion and I don't have them at my company. And he came up to me and he's like, hey, I'm working on a product. It's in stealth mode still right now. We don't really have anything, but like I want, like, it is basically to do exactly what you're talking about. And so I just wanted to, like, get on your radar. Probably a whole year later, like a year goes by, and he comes back to me and he's like, hey, we have something that I think like is usable, and like I would love for you to be one of our first customers. And I checked it out, and I mean, we've been using it ever since. It's called Tiga. And basically, I like to say, are you familiar with Clay? So Tiga, I'd like to say it's kind of like Clay for dummies, not to call myself a dummy, but Clay, like you really need somebody who's 100% of their job is dedicated to running a Clay instance for you. Awesome,
Yeah.
powerful platform. Takes a lot of effort to use that platform. This Tiga tool lets me just go enter a prompt in the same way that I'd enter one into Claude. And then the agent basically builds itself and then runs in the background for me and sends the signal back to my HubSpot for me.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What was the next thing that you were going to
Yeah,
say?
so the next thing is there's this company's also like in private stealth mode right now. I don't know how I keep coming across these. I guess I'm doing my good job of networking.
Yeah.
But they have a tool that plugs into our recordings, like we were talking about before. It has all of our transcriptions, also plugs into HubSpot to get all the email exchanges and like notes and such like that. And it's basically like an AI sales coach. Um, the the way that we use it best really is like there's some classic ones where write me a follow-up email to this call, and it honestly, like, at the first I wanted to doubt it because I wanted to think that there was something more I was putting into my follow-up email. It's so much better than I am at writing that follow. It remembers things because it's reading the transcript that I would completely forget, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I was supposed to send them that. But the most powerful way for me as a manager to use it is I can go in there, and any one of my salespeople, I can get like such a comprehensive snapshot. I do it most often when I'm like doing my forecast and I'm trying to sort of check my sales rep on, like, sales reps always have happy ears and they want to believe every deal is going to win. But like we follow BANT criteria here. And so I have this prompt I can run that's like, tell me where we're at with BANT on all of this sales reps deals that they have set to close this quarter. And it'll go through and give me this BANT analysis across every single deal that they're working. And it's just been like such a game changer. And then recently we've started using it in this way that I don't have any proof that it's going to work, but I'm really excited about it. Um, we created a prompt where you can basically ask it to build you a there's two different instances that will use it. Well, business case is one, and then like a go live plan is another. And so like we'll probably be 5 calls in with this person at this point at least, and we have a pretty quick sales cycle. We're doing this in like 60 to 90 days on average. But still, 5 calls, it's quite a bit of context. You lose track of things. We'll ask it to go in and I'll say, like, build me this business case, build me this go live plan. And have you heard of a tool called Gamma? Yeah, so Gamma that builds the presentations for you. And Markdown, like, follow Gamma's Markdown rules and write me this proposal in a way that I'm going to go copy paste it into Gamma. And then it gives me back this complete presentation overview based on all their calls. It also even like grabs the sources of the information for me. So like I don't put that into the presentation, but it'll be like, this was the quote from this call on this date that I used to inform this slide. And then you can
Nice.
copy paste that, throw it into Gamma, and you have like an incredibly customized, personal go live deck, business case deck within, like, I could do that in 5 minutes for some of these deals. And like that, I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, I love Gamma. I use it, and in a very similar way. I kind of get a lot of the information somehow, using ChatGPT and other things, and then I use it to create the Gamma Markdown, and it makes it. It's just I you know I hated making PowerPoints in like the old corporate. The amount of decks that I've built in my career, and all of them were mostly a waste of time. Like,
Yeah.
and then
And
and then
they're
my boss,
all,
oh, is the font? Oh, yeah, I think you need to make the font bigger. I'm like, really? Just you know.
And they're all different. Like what ends up happening is they're all just like little variations of each other because it's easier to duplicate your last one and then just change some things here and there. And so it's like there's nothing really that customized about this. This is the same deck that I showed to the last person.
Right, exactly. Well, we are way over time. One last question. What do you think the future of like brick and mortar retail looks like? 5 years, 10 years? Any prognostication?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's no doubt that e-commerce selling and like I'll say like it generally like buying digitally, wherever that might be. Maybe you go to TikTok shop, maybe you're on their website buying. That's going to keep rising. I think like as people get more and more comfortable with it, as the what is the one below me? Gen Zers and millennials start to get more into that buyer, like the main buyer persona, they're more comfortable with buying digitally. And so I think what brick and mortar retail stores really need to become is like this community hub in a way. Like, and I think that involves throwing events at the store, having reasons that people want to come to your store, not necessarily to shop. Like a lot of brands I see now will have like a little cafe in the corner of their store and really like being that pillar of your community that's right there in your surrounding area with like the sales that come out of that store being a second tier thing. Right now, I think the biggest problem retail has right now is they still measure their retail stores based on how many sales did I drive at that POS that day. One of the biggest things we've been able to help show brands is we will actually track the online sales after like these clienteling interactions with a customer. So like it can help give your store more credit that they deserve. A lot of times people go into a store. This is how I shop. I go to a store usually, look at a bunch of things, and then I will be like, awesome, thank you so much. And like I usually go home and buy it because maybe I don't want to walk around with it that day. You know what I mean? So like, and the store gets zero credit for that under the existing model where sales that happen at your POS is all that matters. So I think like brands starting to realize the influence that their store can have outside of sales that happen there that day is what I think really the future of brick and mortar retail is like driving towards. More events, more activations, more experience over shopping.
Sounds like that, if I remember, I don't know if she's still there, but there was a woman, I think, that took over the Apple retail stores, and that was her. I think when she took over, that's when they started doing the Genius Bar and the events and the classes, and to make an Apple store a place to go and not just buy an iPhone, but to mingle and learn. And I think you're taking it to the next level with you know, a much more engaged, maybe like you said, maybe a cafe or something like that. But no, that makes total sense. I think the companies that embrace that will be the ones that win.
Totally. Yeah. Because I always say like product product differentiation is the most fleeting thing in all of retail. I think Lululemon is the best example of this. For a period of time there, I bet you Lululemon thought we have the most loyal customers. People that shop at Lululemon love Lululemon. And then all the other athleisure brands, the Alo Yogas, the Fabletics, I'm trying to think of more examples. There's so many of them. Yeah, yep, exactly. Viore, Theory, I think might even be in this camp. And like they started coming around and very quickly when you just have product loyalty and not like brand loyalty or even like human loyalty involved there, it's so easy for me to switch and change my mind to be like, oh, actually, I like this product better. And now you've lost me forever.
It's really interesting. I've noticed that trend, right? It's like how do brands, because there's a hotness or a what's the new cool thing, right? And so like Lululemon was that for a very long time, and then all of a sudden they weren't, right?
Yep.
And then you have others, and then you have other influencers or celebrities that are wearing Viore or whatever, and it's like, oh well, that's the cool thing to wear now, and so we're now all going to buy that. Like, it's really interesting to see how brands navigate those ups and downs of when your brand is cool or not cool or in or out, or and I would
Yeah.
imagine that's a difficult thing to even, you can't really even plan for that.
Yeah. It's like, it's almost like growth, like growing your brand inherently makes your brand less attractive to these kind of
Right.
people. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
everybody wears Lululemon now. It's not
That's
cool
right.
anymore.
Not cool. Right. Well, cool, man. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Where can people find more about you and Deer? Let everybody know what's going on and where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd ask people to just go follow, connect with me on LinkedIn. I get not, this isn't meant to be a brag. I get a ton of connection requests. So like just throw in your message when you connect with me that you heard about me from this podcast, and I'll make sure that I go accept it and I don't ignore that one. Cause I'm trying to avoid all these salespeople trying to get into my inbox. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, and then endearhq.com. That's the easiest place to learn more about the company if you're interested in that.
And Deer what?
HQ.
ENDEAR'HQ.com.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brad.